What is up, everyone? It is your man on fire mentor, David Mailer. And as always, it is an honor to be with each and every one of you. So, if you are new and if you are in for a surprise, because I go through a topic of the day and then I address questions that have been submitted in our private Facebook group. And the idea here is to support one another in rising with more passion, with more power, and more purpose. We are a community, a brotherhood of men that is fiercely committed to holding one another accountable to shining our true light, to living into congruence and coherence and alignment with the real version of us that God created us to be. And it is too easy in today's world to cut each other down, too easy to try to hold each other down and to put one another down and to name and blame and judge and shame and project onto others. No, this community with Man on Fire is all about building a brother up and helping him remember exactly who he is. So let's dive right into today's topic, which is, are you, yes, you, are you reactive or responsive? And what the hell do I even mean by that question? Well, reactive is where you're in a conversation with someone, and I'm talking in particular more about your intimate relationships, more about your relationship with your significant other. Are you noticing that in conversations, there are times where you might get reactive, you might get explosive, you might get passive aggressive, you might get aggressive aggressive, and you're not really proud of how you're showing up? You can tell that this fire is burning inside of you, and it's coming out in a way that you know deep down you're not in the fullness of your power. You're not living into the congruence of who you truly are in that moment. And you know that something has got the best of you, and maybe there's even a little bit of shame or a little bit of guilt. Oh my God, I can't believe I acted that way, or I'm acting this way. So that's where you're being more reactive. Something activated you and now you're reacting, but you're reacting in a way that is possibly adversarial in nature, or perhaps your energy doesn't feel completely safe. Responsive is where you are in complete control of how you're showing up. You have emotional mastery, meaning you show the appropriate emotions for the appropriate moments, and you have developed mastery over your mind, meaning there are these voices in our head. We call them in the Man on Fire world the pirates, and they like to take us on this journey. They like to put poison inside of our head, and they like to get us to do things that are harmful to ourselves and harmful to others. And that's the voice that we all have in the head. And we've heard expressions like analysis paralysis or get in your head, you're dead. That's where the pirates hang out. That's where the ego hangs out. And that is where you don't want that to take over. So we, as men on fire, must develop mastery over our mind and make sure that our mind is something that we use rather than it using us. We ultimately want our mind to be a humble servant to our heart. That is the goal. That is the outcome that we look for in Man on Fire, to make the courageous journey from the head to the heart. That's what every woman wants from a man. Are you living from your heart? Can I feel you? Can I trust you? And can I open to you and reveal the fullness of my heart? And a woman will be able to do that if she can totally trust you and she can feel you, which means you have to learn to become responsive rather than reactive. So let me give you some little examples. I'm thinking about a month or so ago, I remember I was speaking to my wife, and I noticed that for the day, or maybe even for a day or two, she was what some people would say was being controlling. Um, did you walk the dog? Did you feed the dog? Did you put in the right drops? Did you do this? Did you do that? And it's normal for a man to have internal dialogue where the pirates take over. Like, why is she nagging me? Why is she bothering me? Why is she trying to be controlling? Um, you know, I don't want to be in a relationship where somebody's going to try to control me. Why can't she just let go? And this is how most men would think until you learn, and this is what we teach in the Man on Fire Brotherhood. We learn how to silence that voice. We learn how to honor it, but yet not allow it to run our lives. And there's a way of stopping the impulse. There's a way of stopping the voice and coming back into your center, where you're unwavering, you're imperturbable, and you're steadfast in the commitment of who you are, meaning you're solid. You have your roots planted in the ground so firmly that nothing can knock you off of your center. So maybe your wife is acting a certain way, but what does that mean to you? It doesn't have to mean that you get knocked off of your center, which I'll explain why that happens in a moment. So how did I respond to her? Well, if I was reacting, I would have said, "Why are you being so controlling?" Or "Stop trying to control me," right? And I'm sure a lot of you listening would admit, yeah, sometimes I handle it that way, and that's exactly what I mean by "Are you being reactive?" So how did I respond is I was conscious of the tone in my voice. I made sure that I was not abdicating my leadership, and I was fully in my power, and I was fully expressed. And I shared with her, I said, "My queen, I've noticed over the last day or so, you've been a little bit more controlling, and I want to check in with you and see if you're okay. I want to make sure that I'm not missing the mark on something. I didn't miss something between us, and that there's not something going on that I'm not present to. I want you to know I'm here for you." And her arms went up in the air, and she had this big smile, and she was saying yes, 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 because she was in celebration that in that moment I did not make it about myself, which most men have a tendency to do. We have a tendency to personalize. We have a tendency to think that the mood or the way that my wife, our partner, is being is because of me, and she's blaming me, and it's my fault. And why is it always my fault? And hence you react, because you as a man want to see her happy, you want to see her joyous, and you want to be able to put a smile on her face. So when she's acting a certain way, unconscious to you, or perhaps subconscious, flying below the radar of your conscious mind, you might think it's your fault. And no guy wants to think it's his fault, and no guy wants to think that he's not good enough and unworthy, so he sometimes lashes out. That's what we do. We get reactive. And so that would be us handling it in what I call the immature masculine. It's where we're not really in our full leadership, we're not in our power, we're not in our heart, we're not centered, and we've lost sight of who we truly are. The mighty oak tree has become unrooted, and you've lost your center. And when that happens for us, that is where we become reactive. So my wife was in celebration that in that moment I was just simply able to speak to what I'm observing, not make it about me, not personalize, and then make it about her. Hey, are you okay? Have I missed the mark on something? I want to check in with you and make sure that you're okay. And that creates safety. That creates a portal, an opening, a trust, where it will be a hell of a lot easier for her to reveal her heart to you, because she can sense that you're in your masculine leadership. She can sense that your heart's available. She can sense that it's not your ego that's running the show, and you're not reactive, and you're not being passive aggressive or aggressive aggressive. Now, some of you, and by the way, for those of you watching right now, comment below, what are you hearing in what I'm sharing? Smash up that like key, throw me some fire signs. What are you actually hearing in what I'm saying? What's the big aha you're getting from this? How can you relate to what I'm sharing? Can you see how this shows up in your life? Can you see that sometimes you take the hook, right? Like as a fish, if you're this smart, wise, intelligent fish, and you see a hook with bait on it, you don't take the bait. You don't take the hook. Because when you take the bait, when you take the hook, even though it tastes so good when you're doing it, oh my God, this bait tastes so good. Yeah. And then the fisherman caught you with the hook, and you become somebody else's dinner. And this is what happens to us. Our wounding from childhood gets in the way. All of a sudden, we feel like we're not good enough because she's acting a certain way, and then you falsely think you're taking your power back by using force, and you could become passive aggressive or aggressive aggressive, and you steamroll and you talk over her, or you're trying to use a rebuttal and you're preparing for what you're going to say next, and you've lost sight of the present moment. Now, for some of you, you might have grown up, and this was more me, where there was a lot of, um, friction in my family environment. It was a lot of yelling, and it's something that, a young boy or a young girl, it's traumatic to be exposed in an environment where you see your parents arguing and you see your parents yelling. And maybe the mature masculine wasn't modeled for you. Maybe your father didn't necessarily model that at a certain stage of your life in your evolutionary development. And so what happens with a lot of us, and this happened with me, is because I grew up in an environment that was more adversarial, I avoided conflict during my life. I didn't like arguments. I became more gregarious. I became more sociable. I became more likable. I became more friendly, more funny, more playful. And I looked to bring lightness to the room and have everyone smile. And what was invisible to me is that I was doing this out of defense. I was doing this as a defensive protective mechanism. I changed my filter of the world and thought everyone should just smile, everyone should just be happy. Let's avoid conflict, let's avoid things that are controversial, let's avoid things that are adversarial, which those things are healthy if you handle them in your leadership, if you handle them from a place of maturity. But most of us haven't learned that. So what I'm saying is that then what happened to me at those stages of my life is I became more of the pleaser, more of the yes man. And what ends up then happening for many men is that they will seek the approval of their partner, and you inadvertently are turning your partner into your mom. I had taught a workshop on this called Reclaim Her Heart, where we go into the different masks that we wear and the different acts that we play as men that are inconsistent and incongruent with the real version of ourself. And you can learn more about that from that workshop. But what I'm saying is that some of you might think that you're not reactive because, no, I just, there's no reason to argue, there's no reason to fight, there's no reason to have things that are adversarial or controversial in nature. So, when my wife is acting a certain way, I just kind of let her do her thing and it's no big deal. And I'm not talking about that, because for that man, it's very possible that you're simply avoiding stepping into or diving into the center of the fire. And you very well may have abdicated your leadership, lost your voice, lost your cojones, and given away your power, where you've lost your center. And now you think you're the good guy, you think you're taking the high road by not engaging in communication. But the truth is, you haven't learned to own your voice, you haven't learned to own your power, you haven't learned to own your leadership. And so you have most likely become the pleaser or the yes man, or turned her into mom. And what will end up happening is she will lose respect for you. And deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you've lost respect for yourself. So that could play out as an affair, that could play out as a separation that comes as a surprise, or divorce that comes as a surprise and you didn't see it coming, because you become too yin, you become too soft, you become where the feminine energy has taken over, which we should have a healthy amount of, but you've lost your ability to connect more to your masculine energy, because the masculine needs to learn to confront. But you need to learn to confront in a way where you're responsive, not reactive, which is exactly why I wanted to talk about this today. And the responsiveness is by being in your leadership, you can still address the energy that's in front of you. You don't have to take responsibility or ownership for what doesn't belong to you, but you address what's in front of you, not from your head, but from your heart. That's the journey that we are all on as men, if we so choose to have the courage to take that journey. That is why so many men will join one of our coaching programs, whether it's the one that gets you started called Firestarter, or whether it's our Ignited coaching program, which includes a 4-day live immersion, which we're going to have one at the end of January, where we take 32 men through 4 days of really stripping away your identity, stripping away your ego, getting you out of your head and getting you feeling again, and learning how to rise with more passion, power, and purpose, and stepping more fully into the congruence of who you are, where you can show up in your masculine leadership, not just for yourself, but for your wife and for your family and for the world. That is what it's all about, and that is what we do in our different coaching programs. And for those of you that want to learn more about us, you can always go to our link, manonfirerising.com, and you can schedule a discovery call with one of our coaches to see if one of our coaching programs might be the right fit for you at this time of your life. So, with that said, if you're joining me late, we just took a deeper dive into what is reactive and what is responsive, and are you showing up as more reactive in your communication with your significant other, or are you showing up as more responsive? So I already gave you one example, and I'll give you another example as it relates to me, and this one is kind of funny. So I remember, and for those of you that remember this too, put it in the comments. I remember that when I was a kid, one of my favorite games that I would play, I grew up in the late 60s, 70s. You had the games, whatever, Trouble, Parcheesi, Chutes and Ladder. More of the games will come to me. And one of the games that I loved was called, I think, Operation. And, it was this board where different, you had this metal tweezers, and you had to reach down into this person's body and pull out like, the liver or the heart or the funny bone. And the idea was you had to pull out the organ where your metal tweezer didn't touch the metal sides. So you showed precision and accuracy and a steady hand, maybe getting you ready to be a heart surgeon later in life. And you had to pull out this organ without the guy's nose lighting up, which means the metal tweezer hit the metal on the board game. And it was a fun game. And so I remember about a year ago, I was helping my wife, and I was putting drops, homeopathic remedy, in her mouth for her. And I know, and you should know, what your wife is or is not sensitive to, and the things that you have to be super mindful of as her husband. And I know that my wife has a sensitivity to her teeth being touched. And she takes extraordinary care of her mouth, great oral hygiene. She has beautiful, beautiful, beautiful teeth, not to mention a beautiful face and just a beautiful human being. And I knew that when I put the drops in her mouth with the glass dropper, I said to myself, make sure you don't touch her teeth, because she's sensitive. And I'm thinking all the way back to that game, Operation. So what ends up happening is I put the drops in her mouth, and internally I'm saying to myself, cool, you didn't hit her teeth. Job well done, David. And next thing you know, when I'm done putting the drops in, she says something to the effect of, my king, you hit my teeth. Okay, now, how did I handle that? Did I say A, no I didn't? Did I say B, I didn't hit your teeth, what are you talking about? Did I say C, I know for a fact that I didn't hit your teeth, and if we play back all of the camera angles and I show it back to you on the video, you'd see that I didn't hit your teeth, so why are you saying I hit your teeth? Or should it be answer, I think we're up to D or E, should it be something to the effect of, oh my God, my queen, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I hit your teeth. I know how sensitive you are to your teeth being touched. I'll make sure that I'm more careful. Okay? Which of those answers do you do in your relationship? Be honest. And so what did I do is I pretty much did the latter. Why? Because in that moment, I wasn't reactive. I didn't make it mean that I'm stupid and I'm not good enough and I'm careless and I'm a loser and now I'm unworthy of your love. I didn't make it mean that. Now, why didn't I make it mean that? Well, number one, mastery over the mind, which most men, quite honestly, don't have. That's how you could explain why somebody would take their life, why somebody would turn to drugs, why somebody would burn down their relationship and go to massage parlors and be with call girls, go to doing all these things where you're harming yourself because you've let the pirates take over your mind. You don't have mastery over your mind. So number one, I've developed mastery over my mind, and this is what we teach in our Man on Fire programs. And number two, emotional mastery. And how do you get emotional mastery? Is you learn to get with the different emotions that you've suppressed. When did you suppress them? Well, as a little baby, as a little boy, as a toddler growing up, all the things that you saw that you might not have had safety to fully be with in real time. Maybe it wasn't safe enough to cry. Maybe you felt dad would get upset with you and withdraw his love if you cried, and you learned to suck it up and stuff it all down. And that's what happens to a lot of us, boys. And next thing you know, we have all these repressed emotions, and then life invites us to come and feel them by having things like this happen that challenge your self-worth and challenge your ability to feel that you're worthy of love. So when you have emotional mastery and you've diffused, right? You've diffused the charges, the triggers, the polarities that are inside of you. Then when you're interacting with your wife or anyone else for that matter, you can be responsive in real time, and you're not linking what's happening in this moment to the past, and you're not having an autonomic unconscious response or reaction where, oh my God, that reaction just took over before I could do anything about it, because you've done the homework, you've done the dirty work, you've become the professional archaeologist and the professional pirate, where you've learned to dig for the lost treasure, and you found the gold of where you buried your emotions and you got with them. And that's something that we are so proud of and take so much pride in teaching men how to properly get with what you've pushed down, whether it's sadness, whether it's feelings of unworthiness, feelings of being alone, frustration, rage, whatever it is, feeling left out, feeling like this pain will never go away. We at Man on Fire in our coaching programs teach men how to get with those feelings, how to get with those emotions, so that they don't own you, because what you haven't fully gotten with or fully accepted or learned how to be with is what continues to own you in your life. You might hear a helicopter going above, so let me just wait a moment. So in our programs, this is what we're teaching guys, is how do I diffuse all this stuff so that when I am in communication or interacting with my partner, with my wife, with my queen, how can I get to a place where I'm not triggered, I'm not polarized, and I'm not naming, shaming, judging, blaming, or projecting to try to get away from my own pain. And that is exactly what we teach you guys. So if you want to learn more about that, make sure you click on our link, manonfirerising.com, and you will see a section that allows you to apply for a discovery call. And I say apply because, to be very transparent, our programs are not for every man. It's for a man that is truly ready and hungry for growth. And you have to be genuine and sincere about that. And our coaching programs, naturally, there's an investment in them. I mean, we have coaching programs that can go from $2,000 into the six figures. We also have free things that I do, which you're probably seeing me on one of those platforms now. We also do workshops, from $47 to $97. But the coaching programs start as low as $2,000. And so when I say it's not for everybody, it's for the man that is truly ready to invest his time, his energy, and he has the financial means where it's a must for him to actually get this handled at this stage of his life. And if it's not a must for you, it's probably not the right time. Or if it would be financially reckless for you to make that type of investment in yourself at this time of your life, which that could be the case for some of you. Although I've come more from the mindset of we are able to generate what we value. We can find a way when we have a big enough why. And, many men have a tendency to default to, I don't have the money, as an excuse, as opposed to saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to find a way to find the money. Just like if we had a sick child or a dog that needed surgery, of course we're going to come up with the money. But then when it comes to investing in ourselves, the tendency is to bail on ourselves. The tendency is to hide behind, I don't have the time or I don't have the money. I did this for 20 plus years, so when I'm talking to you about it, I'm talking to a previous version of myself. So I know how I used to think, and I know how some of you that might be listening now also think. And I can tell you that my greatest investments that I ever made were in myself, because when you grow as a man, you bring more of the fullness, more of your potential, more of who you really are to the world, and everyone wins. Your wife, your family, your friends, strangers and humanity wins when you're being more coherent and congruent and aligned with the real version of you. So that's what I mean by it's really not for everybody. So please, just be respectful of that. And if you are genuine and sincere and you think you are in a place where actually you're in a place where you're ready to make that type of investment in yourself, then you have a discovery call to discover if one of our programs is the next best step for you. Okay. With that said, for those of you that might have tuned in late, I would wholeheartedly recommend you go back and you watch what I shared about are you reactive or are you responsive. And the last thing that I want to say about that is that, the hidden reason why we have a tendency to get reactive as opposed to being able to respond in real time where we're coming more from our power, more from our heart. The hidden reason about why we really get reactive, it's not because this person did that or that person's wrong and that pisses me off. The real reason is that deep down we feel some form of inadequacy. We feel some form of like we're not good enough or we're unworthy or we don't deserve to be loved. And you might not be able to see that. That's invisible to us. It's behind us. It's very challenging to see that. Like, well, how could that be the case? Like she did this, so I'm getting reactive because look what she did. And no, because the mature masculine who operates from a place of leadership is able to have emotional and mental mastery and come from a place where your heart's involved and you haven't lost your center and you haven't lost who you are. And you should be able to communicate in a way where, yeah, you can have emotions, but it doesn't have to be at somebody. You don't have to be lashing out at somebody. You can still be in your power and you can still show your emotions without you personalizing something, without you making the other person wrong and using them as a means of temporary abatement to your own pain or your own inadequacies. That's usually the hidden reason. And I gave you two perfect examples where I had showed earlier there was a time where my wife was being controlling, but I didn't personalize it. There was something that I did where she said, "You hit my teeth." I know in my soul that I didn't, but it doesn't matter. Am I more invested in being right, or am I more invested in her feeling seen and her feeling heard? And I think the answer to that is that when you give up needing to be right and you see the bigger picture, you get to start operating from a place of being responsive, where you can see the bigger picture, you can read the energy of the moment, you can filter yourself and your childhood and your wounds and your hurts out of the equation, and you can respond from a place of maturity and from leadership. And this is what we're teaching here at Man on Fire in our different coaching programs. So smash up that like key and throw me a comment below. What's a takeaway that you're getting thus far? And then I'll dive into some of the questions that had been submitted into our private Facebook group, and I will make sure that I get those questions handled. So take about 30 seconds, guys, and tell me, what are you learning? What are you hearing? And what is your takeaway? And make sure that if you're really enjoying this video and you know someone that can truly benefit from it, please share it. Please share this video with them. We are here to help one another grow. We are here to help one another rise as men. And we're not here to live a life, of complacency and blandness and average and ordinary and fair and good. No, we are here to support one another to have a extraordinary and phenomenal life. And men will rise from challenge from other men. So challenge those in your life that could use a little bit of support right now. Share these videos with them. Help them grow. At the very least, lead the horse to water. You don't need to force the horse to drink, but you certainly can lead the horse to the water. All right. Let's dive into some of the questions that were submitted. Give me a moment here. Okay. All right. So there was a question, and let me preface by saying this. More often than not, I don't have enough information from the question you guys are submitting. And what I mean by that is I would prefer a one-on-one interaction with you where I can ask you questions to what you've submitted. And in asking you questions, my goal is to facilitate you in coming to deeper levels of truth for yourself. Like, I could offer suggestions, I could offer advice, I could tell you how I would handle it. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not really here to tell you what to do. I'd prefer to help lead you to a higher level of truth that has been outside of what you currently can see. And when you can see a deeper level of truth and take a new action and think a new way, you can have a new outcome. You can have an extraordinary outcome. The problem is we get trapped in how we're seeing things, we get trapped in how we're handling things. And that's why it's always an honor and a privilege to be able to support you guys in this way. So I just wanted to say that. So this gentleman submits a question. We've been married for 11 years and separated for 6 months. We haven't slept in the same room for 6 months because she has trouble sleeping. I approached her a couple of times to talk about our relationship, and all I got from that was her saying that she wants a divorce and asking me, when am I moving out? I tried to show my vulnerability, be humble, and show her that I took responsibility for how I was acting. I don't want to push her away even more. What can I do to get her to trust me and be open to more communication? Will it be better if I move out? Okay, so you see that there's so much loaded within these, 4 sentences or 4 paragraphs. And I would love the opportunity to talk to this guy, most likely for an hour, and help him discover deeper levels of truth for himself. And I would ask questions like, what do you think? Do you think you should move out? Why do you think you should move out? Why do you think you have trouble getting through to her? Why do you feel that she's shut down? Why do you feel that you are not able to penetrate her emotionally and spiritually where she opens up to you? Why do you think she's not communicating with you? Do you think she's been having an affair? Do you think she's been out of integrity with her soul? Do you think that she has shame and she has guilt and it's easier for her to relieve the relationship rather than come clean and tell you what she's done? How have you been in the relationship? Has there been affairs on your behalf? How have you hurt her? What were some of the betrayals? Did you clean up those betrayals? How did you clean up those betrayals? Could she feel you when you cleaned up those betrayals, or were they coming from your head? So I would ask 10, 15, 20, 30 questions to pull out more and more and more information to get you thinking more deeply and having more inventory for yourself, where you start to see deeper truths, right? So what I am hearing though, and what I say by what I mean by what I'm hearing, just so you guys are clear, is I'm intuitively sensing, right? So there's what people say, and then there's what they don't say. And this is a writer downer for you guys, and it's, communication comes down to more about what's not being said, more so than what is being said. So here's what we're saying, but where the magic is and where the growth is, or lies, is you got to get to what's not being said. What are you not saying? What is she not saying? Because it's the defense in what's not being said that is not allowing the full authenticity. And when there's, let's just call it possible fibs, lies in the space, withholds, which are lies, it's very challenging for there to be a repair and a reigniting of trust and intimacy and love, because you're not being forthright. So these are the types of things that I would point out to this gentleman and have him really take a look at, how have you been showing up in the marriage? Have you been the pleaser? Have you been the yes man? Have you turned her into mom? Were you the steamroller, the gaslighter, where you walked all over her and talked all over her and, didn't acknowledge how she was feeling? Have you been in your head, or have you been in your... So many things to look at. So the one thing that is consistent that I always share with you guys is, okay, so I'm sharing this information with you, and some of you are like, wow, this is amazing. I wish I learned this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 days ago. God, I wish I had exposure to stuff like this. Well, yes, it's great to have exposure to this type of information. And for many of you, it's starting to penetrate you, right? It's starting to sink into your body. But if you don't own it in your physiology, you won't own it in your life. It'll just be information. And we have nothing but an abundance of information. We have this thing called Google, the internet, where you have plenty of information. What we don't have is application. What we don't have is real life living of the information, which we call wisdom, because wisdom is when you've embodied it. Oh, this is cool how the sun is hitting the lion. What you don't have is you're not living it yet because you're not encoded with the information. You only have it here. So the whole reason that men join our coaching program, one of our coaching programs, is to move the information from here to here. Get it in your body. Because when you start to own it in your body, you begin to own it in your life. So you could say all the right things to your partner, but if she can't feel you and it's not congruent with your energy, it's not going to land. So I want to be clear, like I'm not here to give someone a magical pill, potion, lotion, or magical phrase. Here, this is what you say to her. There's no gimmicks with Man on Fire. This is your heartfelt, honest desire with hunger, because you have to have hunger. You have to have hunger that you truly want to grow yourself as a man. You recognize that you've hit a capacity, you've hit a ceiling, and you need to bust through that ceiling, and you need help, you need support. And the best way to do that is to hire a coach, hire a mentor, hire an expert, hire somebody that is already living it and has, in my case, I've fostered and built a community of men that are committed to having this in their life, to a life of growth, to being a guardian and protector and gatekeeper of a woman's heart, to up-leveling our frequency and our consciousness so we can bring more of ourselves to the world and take on a greater level of responsibility to others, seeing beyond myself, I. No, like the we, seeing beyond just you and seeing beyond even your family, and how can you, in growing yourself, be of greater service and of greater contribution to others. That's what we're all about at Man on Fire. And of course, there's so many more components to it, and nurturing and fostering our relationship with who God is for us. We have men of all faiths and religions in our community. It's not about thinking about the world one way, and we welcome the wide variety of diversification that we've attracted. It's so beautiful that we have so many different types of people, but the common goal that we share is we want to show up as a better version of ourselves, for ourselves, for our families, and for the world, and we share the commonality of wanting to grow ourselves as men. So with that said, I can't tell this man what to do. He has to be willing to grow himself and start taking honest inventory and start to look at all of these things. And yes, reading books and listening to things, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, you name it, whatever platforms are out there. Of course, those things can help, but you got to at some point get out of the stands and get down on the field. And you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get dirty and do the work. And, not many men will make that courageous journey. Not many of them are willing to crawl through that tunnel and trust that there's light on the other side. And so maybe 1% of 100, out of 100%, maybe 1% of men are genuine and sincere and hungry enough to want to grow themselves, as opposed to just get by, right? Because we have a great addiction in humanity, as taught to me by one of my teachers, Donnie. We have this addiction to a life of complacency, a life of average, ordinary. And we weren't born for that, guys. We were born for extraordinary, and we were born for phenomenal. Okay, let me get to, you put a comment below. What are you hearing and what I've shared about this previous question that was submitted? Let me know that you're getting it. So make sure you're commenting, smash up the like key, and throw me some fire signs for Man on Fire, and then I'll move on to the next question. Okay, the next question. My wife says that she doesn't want to talk about feelings, was never brought up that way. She knows we need to because of the current distance between us, but doesn't want to. Makes me feel like coming to her about things will just push her further away, because she's adamant that it's not her thing. How do I handle this? So it's such a beautiful and such a vulnerable question. So let me let me do my best to answer this in a way that will serve this man and serve other men. And how I would answer this is, you can't sign on for being in a relationship where you, as the man, are tiptoeing on broken glass and walking around on eggshells. You can't abdicate your leadership, meaning give up your center, give up your power, and come from a space of being a wounded little boy where you're now worried that mommy's going to be mad at you. Well, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to upset her. I don't want to push her further away. That's not about pushing her away. That's about, I'm terrified that if I do the wrong thing, she's going to leave me. And I don't want her to leave me because I am terrified to be alone. And I don't want to feel unworthy and I don't want to feel unlovable. So I'll hide behind saying I don't want to push her further away. It's not about her. It's about us as a man and being honest about where are we not really in our power, and where are we coming from a place of neediness, codependency, mommy, please don't leave me. And this is what I mean by an abdication of leadership. You're not operating from your power. Now, guess what, guys? I mean, most of us grew up this way. You know, I truly can't say that I started operating from a place of leadership and power, authentic power, until I was in my mid-40s, early to mid-40s. And that came through heartache, that came through loss, that came through trauma, that came through the death of my father, that came from a divorce. I mean, these are things that are there to be your greatest teachers if you allow it to be. For many of us, it becomes your excuse to be a victim and to hide from life and hide from the fullness of who God made you to be. No, that wasn't going to be the case with me. I was going to learn and honor my father's life and the legacy that he left behind, and I was going to honor his lineage, and I was going to make sure that I didn't make the same mistakes, and I was going to grow into the fullness of who God made me to be. And that's the gift that I give back to my father, that he gives back to his father, is you make sure that your last breath as a man is one of joy, one of freedom, one of fulfillment, not one of regret, right? So with that said, you know, what I'm really hearing within this man's share is he doesn't own his power, and he's buying into the illusion of his wife saying, well, you know, I don't like to talk about my feelings, or I wasn't brought up that way. Well, that might all be true, but she's a woman, and deep down, you bet your ass she has feelings, and you bet your ass she wants to feel. But she probably hasn't felt safe enough to feel because there's probably hasn't been a mature enough masculine leader to hold space for her to drop back into her heart and to start feeling again. So your role and your job, guys, as men, is not to buy into the illusion that's in front of you. And when your partner is in her wound, right? And I don't say that as a judgment. And what I mean by wound, just so we're clear, is when she's in the forgetting of who she is, when she's operating from a place of where she's been hurt rather than from owning her light. You as the man must come home into your light. You must become the lighthouse. You must be the lighthouse and learn to shine your light so bright that those in proximity to you can find their light. This is what a lighthouse does, right? When the brighter and brighter and brighter the light can shine, the further out to sea that a ship has drifted and lost its way, like we lose our way as people, your light is so strong and so bright that the ship can find its way home. And so this is where we take on the courageous acceptance and challenge of choosing to grow ourselves. This is, again, why somebody would join a program like Man on Fire, one of our coaching programs, or perhaps something outside of Man on Fire. Of course, there's thousands of things and ways to get support. I can only speak to what we do at Man on Fire. I can't sit here and tell you what all the other programs are about. What I can tell you is that our programs are not about helping you be more comfortable. It's not about patting you on the back. No, it's about challenging you. It's about being fierce about holding you to the fire of your true potential. And it's not about keeping you comfortable. It's about pushing you and stretching you and showing you how to connect with your emotions and showing you how to start rising with more passion and more power and more purpose, and helping you see your blind spots and the ways that you've been giving away your power or abdicating your leadership or not shining your light. Like, you need someone in your life to be honest with you, to hold you accountable. Many of us have a tendency to join groups that we're comfortable in. So we don't really raise the bar. We don't really raise the ceiling. We stay in a place of comfort that's more sociable for us. It's more, connection. You're not going to get that at Man on Fire in one of our programs. You're going to be stretched beyond your comfort zone, because that's where growth is, right? It starts at the end of your comfort zone. We've all heard that expression. And I think this is what's missing from so many men's lives, is that, number one, we didn't have a masculine role model. Masculine leadership wasn't necessarily modeled for most of us. And number two, we're not putting ourselves in environments where we get challenged, because this is where men will grow, being in these environments. And please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. We have a huge component of the work that we do that drops a man into his heart and helps him feel more and helps him become more sensitive and sense the subtleties of his surrounding environments, from his own emotions to other people's emotions to nature. That's a huge part of what we do, because this is who we are at our core, right? So there is no direct answer to any of these questions. It's really a matter of, thought-provoking questions to get you to think more deeply and reflect more on your life and where you really haven't shown up as the real version of you. And, I'll end by saying it's extraordinarily challenging for a woman to show you the real version of who she is, to show you the full reveal of her heart, every chamber of it, and to fully trust you and be intimate with you and share love with you. It's challenging for a woman in today's world to do that if she's not with a man that is owning his light, if she's not with a man that is owning his power, if she's not with a man that's owning his leadership, if she's not with a man that hasn't committed to a life of growth. Because if you are still operating from a space of being reactive, if you're still in your immature masculine, if you're still operating from your wounding and you're not shining your light, don't expect her to open her heart to you unless you're with a woman that's done an immense amount of healing and transformational work on herself, and she's been patiently holding space for you to come back to your light, which is the case. I've seen it many times with men that have entered into my community. But more often than not, at Man on Fire, we hold the mindset of the man must go first. You want to see her shift, you want to see her change, you want to see her soften, you want to see the walls come down, the bricks come off, brick by brick, until you see and feel her heart and have the intimacy and have the trust and have the respect and have the love. You, sir, must go first. And you must sign on for a life of growth. That is what it's all about at Man on Fire, is supporting you in being that version of yourself. So I wanted to get to the majority of the questions that had been submitted the previous week that I didn't get to. There is one more here that I'll get to, and then there's a boatload more questions that I'm simply not going to get to today that we will address on another one of our videos. So let me get to this one last question here. This gentleman writes, I owned a home before we got together. In the meantime, guys, again, put a comment below if you wouldn't mind, because I like to feed off of you. I want to know if what I'm sharing with you is landing for you. Are you resonating with it? Is it touching a part of your heart and your soul? Is it truly opening up a gateway for you, a portal for you, where you're taking greater inventory and reflection in your own life? And this is going to be an invitation for you to start wanting to live as a more congruent version of yourself. So please, if you wouldn't mind, comment below and help me understand what it is that you're getting out of this. Okay. With that said, let me get into the last question. The question is, or whatever this gentleman wrote, is, I owned a home before we got together. I moved her and her 2 kids into my house with my daughter, and we lived together for 2 years before we got married. I didn't make her sign a prenuptial agreement. She started her career, and shortly after, she sold that house and moved to a bigger one across town with better schools. It was supposed to be the kids' forever home. 3 years ago, we had a son together. Now, after 11 years, she wants a divorce and wants me to leave because she can't afford the house alone. I want to leave my kids their house, their investment for college, or anything later. But would any man just walk away with nothing because, according to her, I didn't learn how to love her properly fast enough? Okay, so number one, of course, we all know that this guy's in pain and we feel for him. But I simply don't have enough information. There's just random sentences where I just don't have enough to really fully support this man. The only thing that I would share, and I'll end on this note today, guys, is to take a look at where we've made decisions, where we've made choices, where we know deep down we dishonored and we betrayed ourselves, meaning we overrode our own truth, we overrode our own knowing. So, for example, some men would say, I knew not to marry this person. I didn't listen to my heart, and my mind took over. My ego got the best of me. Or I've spoken to many women. I knew that marrying this man was a mistake. I was scared. I was lonely. XYZ. So we do this as men in business as well. We so many times we'll say yes to something and give our trust to somebody else when we dishonored trusting our own sense, our own knowingness about something. And we owe it to ourselves to honor our truth, to honor our knowing, because when we dishonor ourselves, when we betray ourselves, right? When we betray ourselves later on in life, it comes back as a betrayal. And so we think, oh, this person hurt me. Oh, this person broke their word. Could you believe what this person did to me? Whether it's cheated or separated or divorced or stole my money. And the answer is, yeah, of course I could believe it. How do you not believe it? Where did you override your truth? Where did you override your knowing? And again, these are things that we teach within our Man on Fire Brotherhood, in our community. In fact, there's even patterns within your body that put you in a place where you're going to be more prone to attracting these betrayals. And we teach you guys how to kind of unwind that type of pattern in your body so that you grow the receptivity and courage to actually trust yourself more, and then allow your words and your actions to be congruent with trusting in yourself rather than waiting